Welcome to our podcast, To Be or Not to Be, from blockchain to Bitcoin and everything in between. We explore the world of crypto and digital assets. We ask simple questions and help you find the answers by talking to business experts, academics, and experienced finance professionals.
Before we finish, do you have time to just perhaps introduce a little bit about where you see the future of recruitment and why Bitcoin and AI or crypto sit within your remit as well?
Yeah, so within the business, we have a Bitcoin executive recruitment division. We recently placed a US sales director with an AI intelligence firm. But that's servicing our clients and servicing our candidates' needs. And the Bitcoin executive recruitment division, we see an opportunity over the next 5, 10, 15 years to be able to build a global reputation in not just the Bitcoin industry, but also with our traditional client base. To say we have a business with a 4-year history of buying privately, we have a business who's gone public and increased our levels of governance and increased our levels of due diligence on custodians and exchanges and security and using Bitcoin on the balance sheet as a public traded company. We're also the executive recruitment company who place globally in that space. So our Bitcoin executive recruitment division is likely to service the sorts of businesses it's already working with and placing with: Bitcoin-focused investment funds, Bitcoin mining businesses, Bitcoin native innovative companies, exchanges, custodians, and any other Bitcoin-focused businesses that come to market over the next 3 years or are already at the market. And the candidates who that will help are the candidates who are already working in the space but want to confidentially explore other opportunities in the space without compromising their current role, and the candidates we approach to see whether they're interested in looking at positions, but also the candidates who are trapped in traditional positions in chief investment officer roles, for example, that have a passion for Bitcoin and an understanding of Bitcoin and see where the opportunity is coming and want to find a confidential bridge from the traditional sector into the Bitcoin sector. And then the AI placements that we do, there's been no correlation between AI and Bitcoin in terms of the client base of the candidates we're working with. And there's no correlation with the majority of our revenue and Bitcoin. You know, the big four and the business advisory firms makes no difference what the Bitcoin price is day to day as to whether they're hiring a new partner or a new director. But I think there's a real opportunity for people-based businesses in executive recruitment and talent who understand AI and understand Bitcoin, not just in the businesses. I mentioned now we're working with Bitcoin-focused firms, we're working with AI intelligence and data firms. But over the next 5 and 10 years, I believe every traditional business, the big four, one of my colleagues, Gordon Roy, just put a report out about business consulting firms and the acquisitions of small AI businesses and AI consulting firms that they're making at the moment. I believe every traditional business at some stage, S&P 500s, NASDAQ companies, FTSE 100 companies over in the UK, they will all trend to the adoption of AI within the business and Bitcoin within the business. And if it's not Bitcoin, it might start with stable coins for international payments and settlements.
Yeah.
But we want to be in advance of that, building our reputation. So when that wave comes in 5 or 10 years, we're the go-to executive recruitment firm to find senior level talent who have experience in the space, truly understand the space. And we're trusted because of the verification that we've been in it for that period of time and successfully worked in it for that period of time. So there's an opportunity externally with candidates and clients for our executive recruitment company. But internally, the way in which you scale an executive recruitment company, we compete with, I think it said 40 businesses in Leeds that work in international executive recruitment. So if we're speaking to a client in the USA, quite often it's a business on the same street who's competing for the business.
Yeah.
And those businesses are made up of recruitment consultants focused on their own clients and their own candidates, and they're the revenue generator. So there's very little M&A activity goes on in executive recruitment. if you took recruitment as a whole in the UK, I think there's 30,000 privately owned recruitment firms, or over 30,000. In executive search, there's 40 just within this city, but I would estimate probably do at least, I've got to be lower end on the numbers, but I would estimate we probably do about 100 million in leads, in revenue. That 100 million is made up of recruitment consultants generating between 200,000, 800, maybe £1 million per annum individually at their desk.
Yeah.
So how do you attract all of them to your business? The way we've designed it is a Bitcoin balance sheet that's now holding 52 Bitcoin, that we intend to expand the balance sheet and expand the Bitcoin that we hold. The PLC status and the ability to now say to them, well, if every company hypothetically in this city offers the same basic salary and the same commission scheme, we offer the same basic salary and the same commission scheme. But in addition to that, every year when you're providing growth to the business through revenue and profit, we're locking in the free-flowing cash flows into Bitcoin, and you're locking in performance-based share options in the business that you're growing. So the cycle becomes, we become more attractive to the capital markets because of the capital markets team on the Bitcoin Treasury, which has got Richard Byworth, who's built a 5,000 Bitcoin hedge fund in Switzerland and ran one of the world's largest convertible bonds and derivatives and futures desks at Nomura. Sam Roberts, who led the first British pension fund allocation. Vijay Selvam, who I mentioned earlier, who's on the ex-Goldman Sachs. And Angus Gladish, the CFO, who's done main market listings. So the opportunity to join this business is that you help us make the Bitcoin balance sheet that's active more attractive to the capital markets, which in turn makes the operating business more attractive to more executive recruiters who want to join to also earn some performance-based share options. And in turn, it goes between both of them, and the balance sheet strengthens the operating business strengthens the balance sheet. And I think that model with our competitors, I would like to, we are active in our talent acquisition strategy to bring people into the business. At the moment, we are opportunistic this year in our acquisition strategy, but in the future, we'll be more active with the acquisition strategy in saying either we're bringing people into the business to develop revenue, but if our competitors want to keep their entrepreneurial spirit, keep their brand and keep developing their business, they can join the group with some long-dated performance-based equity options, drive more revenue into the group, use their cash reserves for us to strengthen the Bitcoin balance sheet, and then they can also leverage the PLC status within the Connecting Excellence XCE Group to be able to offer their talent some performance-based share options. And we've got other ideas as well for international expansion. But if they didn't want to join the group, then I'd consider all my competitors to just copy the strategy and consider studying Bitcoin and consider how it could benefit their balance sheets as well as private businesses, because there's very little they can do to store value for 10, 15 years. And I've been in that situation where people-based, it's service-based, you're not asset-heavy as a business.
Phenomenal. What I think you've also touched on there, almost to me without realising, is that you're describing that flywheel, that process that can just get better. And what we are seeing in the UK and across the world is that if we're not careful, we spiral down. And you're just describing the rebalance of that by how things can get better. And again, that comes from your conviction and your energy and your foresight. So there's very little to argue with on these points. And you probably know I'm an ally as well in terms of having Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And as you were telling me then, just to sort of finish off this conversation for now, but I would love to continue it because you raised so many points that in the future I'd like to sort of dig a bit further into. But you mentioned that you're a public company. And with what you've described to me, and this is not financial advice to anybody, but with what you've described, I would want to look more at your business model and your operating model and then say, oh, we could buy shares in this company. Oh, could we put it into our pension? Could we put it into our SIP? Because that's a way of accessing Bitcoin as well, without us actually knowing a great deal about Bitcoin. So again, to reiterate, it's not financial advice, but can people buy, this is a question, so it's journalistic, can people buy shares in your company?
Yeah, so people in the UK can buy shares and people in the USA can also buy shares now. That's only recent, the USA cross-listed. But in the UK, we're listed on Aquis. And there was a big education piece throughout the listing, albeit I'd been thinking about doing this for a couple of years. And it was only because of the success of another business you're very familiar with, Alison, who's got a great CEO, who I was with a couple of weeks ago. Because of their success, they paved a path for businesses like mine who were privately using Bitcoin, who had an opportunity to grow as a direct result of the Bitcoin balance sheet. And we followed that path, but there was still a huge educational piece as we went forward through that. And I had a lot of calls with AJ Bell, Hargreaves Lansdown, Interactive investors to help educate the brokers in the UK, and they were very supportive of the business because effectively we are an operating business with a 4-year history of buying Bitcoin as a result of increased revenue and cash flows, and we are an active balance sheet business that has a long-term Bitcoin treasury strategy. And by active I mean we can access the capital markets to raise capital and expand the balance sheet. So AJ Bell, Hargreaves Lansdown and Interactive Investors, we're available on all of those under the ticker XCE. And yeah, I suppose that brings me right back to what you mentioned there, Alison. Back in 2020 I was looking for a allocation for my own sort of tax trap capital and ISA and SIP. I had access, fortunately, in 2017 to the Bitcoin ETN and then MicroStrategy back then, and yeah, I think that's been a theme for me.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you, and I'm pretty certain that once people start to see this, they'll want to, like you say, just allocate a small portion of their time, a small portion of their disposable income into really learning a lot more about the future of finance, digital capital, and the way that the structure of businesses are moving. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. And while I've got you on screen now, just to say, is this something that you'd be willing to allocate in the future, another hour maybe, just to talk about some of the points again that you've touched on and come back and talk to be or not to be?
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Alison.
Brilliant.
And happy to...
This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, tax, or any other form of professional advice. Nothing in this episode or any other should be taken as a recommendation, endorsement, or invitation to buy, sell, or hold any cryptocurrency, tokenized asset, or other investment, or to engage in any specific strategy. Views expressed by the hosts and guests are personal opinions only and do not represent the views of any organizations they are affiliated with. The content may be inaccurate, incomplete, or become outdated at any time, and no liability is accepted for any loss or damage arising from reliance on it. Listeners should always do their own research and seek advice from an appropriately regulated professional before making any financial decisions.